I'm one of those entrepreneurs who has a classic, I had a need and couldn't find what I was looking for on the market. So it was 2008 and literally I needed long leg underwear for women and all I could find was men's underwear or shapewear. And I had an incident one day walking on my lunch break at my old job where my thighs started rubbing together. It was one of the first days of summer. And I was like, oh God, I forgot to put my shorts on underneath my dress because I always was used to wearing little bike shorts, like spandexy, thick bike shorts, or like a shapewear company we shall not name that ends in ank. And I thought there has to be a better way on these humid days for someone who just needs some fabric coverage between her legs. So I spent the summer looking for this product that I wanted and couldn't find it anywhere. It did exist in a very basic format for some plus size companies that were offering size 16 plus, but they were still really like a basic cotton, like granny panty. And I just shook my head and said, I think I can do better. So that's essentially how it came about.
All right, let's talk about thighs.
Let's.
People that are all shapes, sizes, and ages may not have a thigh gap, right? So
yeah.
even skinny girls might have chafing thighs. So let's just get that out of the way.
Yes.
And I want to hear you probably have done a lot more research on this than that statement I just gave.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up right at the top of this conversation because it's so core to why I started this business. Yes, I wanted a short to prevent thigh chafing, but I've been deeply passionate about dispelling this myth around thigh chafe, that if your thighs chafe, it must mean there's something wrong with you. It must mean you have a weight problem. Only plus size people chafe. All of that is complete nonsense. So what we like to say at Thigh Society is any skin that touches where there's presence of friction and moisture is prone to chafe. So if you are a size 2, you may get thigh chafing, and if you're a size 22, you may not have thigh chafing. It's a skin sensitivity issue as well. I know women whose thighs touch all the time who never experience thigh chafing or have to really be extra sweaty in order to get chafe.
Right.
For me personally, I knew it when I started the business. I had been what we would now call a disordered eater for many years, from my teens onwards, and my weight had fluctuated from a size 6 to a size 12. And no matter what my weight was, no matter what the circumference size of my thighs were, they always chafed, no matter what, if I had bare skin touching in warm weather. So we're really big on that mission to let people understand that this is a totally normal thing. Runners chafe, people who are super fit chafe, babies chafe. Let's normalize this totally normal.
Everybody chafes.
Everybody chafes. And not everybody chafes at the same time, but it's so normal. It really isn't something that should be stigmatized. Yeah.
Okay, so not naming the anks, but naming them. How do you differentiate and compete with a company like that?
We don't. Full stop. When I started the business, I was absolutely very clear in our marketing and messaging, and we still are today now that I have a team, that we are not shapewear. If someone is looking for shapewear, they can look somewhere else. We can make recommendations. There are tons, maybe even hundreds of shapewear companies out there. And I'm not anti-shapewear. I think there's a time and a place for shapewear. I do own a few pieces. It's just the design for this product, if you boil it down to the basics, is a long leg boxer brief for women. That is seamless, invisible under clothing, lightweight, breathable, moisture wicking, and just it feels like a second skin. I don't know many shapewear brands where you feel like it's a second skin. You often have to wriggle and contort your body to get into it. You're essentially redistributing parts of your body when you're wearing it. It's very difficult to take off, to put on.
It's really uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. Sausage in a casing comes to mind as a metaphor. And from the perspective of us wanting to help people feel confident and comfortable in their skin, putting on shapewear is a bit self-objectifying. It forces you to contemplate your body and what you think about it. And especially women, all these negative thoughts come rushing to our minds like, oh, I wish I was just smoother along here. And I wish my terms we use like muffin top and all these things that sound super cute, but actually could be quite detrimental to our psyche over and over again as we tell ourselves this negative messaging. I never wanted Thigh Society undergarments to make anyone feel that way. I really wanted an underwear that you could put on, set it, and forget it. And I always do the analogy when people sort of ask me, but why? So, do you think men struggle to put on their boxer briefs when they get dressed in the morning? No, they don't. They literally grab the most comfortable pair of underwear, they put it on, and then they wear it underneath their jeans and whatever else. Like, why shouldn't women have the same options? I like to say we don't compete against shapewear. Yes, our products do offer some light smoothing, but at most it feels like a really comfortable, gentle hug. It's nothing like the squeezing that you'd experience with
Right.
shapewear.
I own a pair. I believe you gifted them to me 5 years
I
ago.
did.
And
Yeah.
absolutely, I don't go to the drawer and think, "Oh, oh
Right.
god, like, this is
Right.
gonna make me hot just thinking about having to put it on. This is
No.
gonna make me feel uncomfortable." I once, and I know we're not talking about bras, but I put on a bra that was, I think, it was shapewear,
Yeah.
and I think that it not only did mental damage, but physical damage to me, and then, like, I pulled a muscle trying to get it off.
Oh,
I
yeah.
threw it away, and it was like $68. Back
Yeah.
to you. They're lovely, and I really appreciate it, and I've been seeing some of the ads that you're doing and really love where you've come from when I met you, I think it was
Yes.
5 years ago.
Yep.
So, let's back it up to
Yeah.
me not being such a fangirl, and tell me how your business today is structured.
How it's structured today is not so dissimilar to how it was structured 5 years ago, except we have more people on the team. So when I started this company in 2009, and yes, that's 2009, not 2019. I've been at this for a long time. I was very deliberate in staffing my company with freelancers and predominantly freelance women who were entrepreneurs in their own and who were experts in a certain area of e-commerce, whether that was email or ads marketing or social media, et cetera. And so right now, my team is structured with a network of freelance women who are all remote and virtual. We have been since day one, before we even knew what a pandemic was, which bode well for us at the beginning of the pandemic for sure. But my team's structured all over the world, and everybody has their area that they work in, and we communicate via Slack and in many of the ways that now it has become normal for most of the world in this sort of post, if I can say post pandemic, I think we're still in it, but post pandemic world. And yeah, we do everything digitally. I've only met in person one member of my, or sorry, if I include our third party fulfillment, our warehouse, which is an entity into themselves, I've only met about 4 people of my roughly 20-person team. The rest are all digital.
You have grown incredibly over the years, and you're at a really big number with I I don't know if I've met another entrepreneur at the revenue level that you are at that doesn't have a dedicated full-time team.
Yeah, it is pretty unique. And I love to share the story because I think it opens up possibilities for
Mhm.
other people. I've been very fortunate. I think there is an element of luck and timing in terms of the people that you run into. The team that's with me now has not been the team that was with me 5 years ago. And I think that's normal. I
Yeah.
think as you grow a company, some people are going to stay with you and grow as the business grows. In the case of Thigh Society, being a direct to consumer online brand, we really have grown quite fast, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, and even in the last 6 since I've been on it full time. And so the skill sets that are required at different sort of revenue thresholds and size of the company change as time goes on. And so we have parted ways with some freelancers over the years and brought in new freelancers who have worked with businesses our size who are on our path. And it just seems to have evolved at a pace that feels very natural and normal, that okay, we're approaching this next threshold. Who do we need on the team? Where are our gaps? And the people that have come into the team, I've actually met at very fortunate times. And actually, my current CMO, she and I met by complete fluke because she called me to conduct a reference for a web design and development agency that she was considering using for another client. And so I didn't realize when she contacted me that she actually wasn't an employee of that other company, that they were in fact a client. We started to get chatting, and it turned out to be that she was exactly who I needed on my team moving forward. This was in 2020. So moving forward into 2021. And she has amassed in her freelance business her own group of freelancers that she knows and trusts, that she can bring and plug and play into the brands that she works with. And all of us are aligned in the sense of they all want to be working for mission driven, ideally female led brands that are trying to make a difference in some positive way. So there's really been a lot of synergies and alignment. Count myself as so lucky, honestly.
Would you consider your CMO a fractional CMO?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Does anyone have equity in the business, or is it completely yours?
It's completely mine. We're starting to think about, and I'm starting to think about what's next as we look at our next stage of growth. We've essentially been doubling the business for the last few years, and now I've gotten to a point where I really need to give some serious consideration to what an equity play might look like with my team. And we have pretty open dialogue about things like that. I think you have to. I'm not somebody who's I'm not a very hierarchical person by nature in terms of an organization. So we're pretty flat. And I certainly have my key leadership team who I work with, my CFO and COO, my fractional CMO. So we're in discussions right now about what that might look like for next year.
And then back to your COO.
Yeah.
COO is also fractional?
She is, yes. And she also plays a dual role of CFO. And she has been with me the longest. She's the longest serving team member. I met her through my previous career, actually working as an MBA career coach at the University of Toronto. I had shared my idea at the time with a couple of professors at the university, and one of them introduced me to her, and we hit it off. And actually, she started off as a mentor and coached me out of my full-time job, taking that leap off the cliff.
I know. I met you and you still had a full-time job.
That's right. I think I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, you were telling me you weren't sure at that time if you were going to continue. So here we are at the next question. What was the pivotal moment that made you forge ahead?
Such a great question. I think it was a couple of factors. I think number one, I was turning 40, and it was this attitude of, if not now, when? I had already been running the business for about 8 years. I'd seen the sales steadily increase. I'd seen some opportunities bring forward with Meta, but Facebook ads. And I could start to see the potential that I always was afraid to even dream about for this business. And I think that combined seeing the trajectory of the business, and also, quite frankly, having coached MBA students for 7 years prior on these major career changes.
But it's hard as a coach to other people.
Yeah, it was much easier.
I'm starting new businesses outside of my core business.
Yeah.
And I can coach somebody like you wouldn't believe, but I can't seem to figure out I can't do the thing that I can do in my core business, or that I can coach other people within this new business. And I think it's because I'm learning a new business.
Yes.
But for you to be able to coach MBA students and then apply that to your own core business, how did you make that stick? Your mom tells you something and you're like, whatever. And then somebody else tells you and you're like, yes, but it was the exact same thing.
Yes. Although I was running the business very part-time for 6 years prior. So I don't like to call it my side hustle, because I really wasn't hustling that hard, to be perfectly honest. Like I really loved my
It was
day
like
job.
a pet rock.
Yeah, it was
every so often.
Yeah, like it was a hobby, and I resented when people would call it a hobby, but I also wasn't prepared to call it a hustle. So it was somewhere in between. Like I wasn't taking a salary from it. I was taking a few dollars here and there. I remember I was all excited because I took some money aside and put built-in closets in our bedroom. And I was all excited because I was like, yay, this is bonus money that I get to take from the business. And I always have been, and I like to call myself a reluctant entrepreneur. I never thought I would I never thought I'd be doing this full time, and certainly not in the rag trade. But honestly, I think,
wait, back it up. Yeah. What did you just call
the rag trade? So I'm from Montreal originally, which was a hub before everything went offshore, and offshore manufacturing became more of a thing in the last, I'd say 20, 30 years, let's say. Montreal was a hub for schmata business, as we like to call it, or the rag trade. And I knew nothing about apparel manufacturing, making garments, sewing, fashion. I still don't know anything about fashion when I started the business, but I was really devoted to finding a solution to a very simple problem that I perceived as a simple problem. Like, why aren't any of the big brands coming up with? And so it was that curiosity and desire to find a product to meet my needs that ultimately led me on this path. I will say too, at 40, having coached MBA students by that point for 7 years, having had 2 other careers before that, working in the government and then working at an international consulting firm, but had been around the block. I had 3 career changes by that point in my life. I really had a pretty broad skill set. And my attitude was, you know what, if I take a year off to try to do this full time, what are the risks really? I can always find a job somewhere else. I believed in my employability is really what it came down to. I had savings. My husband and I had a good long chat, many chats about what that would look like. And the agreement was try it for a year. Let's see how it goes. And after a year, if the sales don't keep increasing or you're not able to pull a profit or a salary from it, we'll reevaluate. But the year finished and things were, I wouldn't say it was like a complete pendulum swing, but things were looking positive. And so we negotiated another year and that's when things started to really happen. And I haven't looked back. I think it's really about believing in yourself. And I will say this, and I like to say this for people who are listening and wondering, what does this mean for me? Because I was a reluctant entrepreneur, I'm really a fan of people trying to do both a full-time job and see if there's opportunity for their business to take off on the side. There are enough hours in the day. You can decide how many hours you devote. No one's saying you have to work till 2 a.m. And also, if you're not sure, or you don't even have an idea to pursue, try to pursue intrapreneur opportunities in the organizations that you're working in. Because if you think about it, if you're with an organization that allows you the creative freedom to plan and strategize, whether it's a new program or a new service offering for something that is uncharted territory, see if you can do that. See how that makes you feel. Are you energized by those projects? You might be terrified. That's okay. I was terrified. I'm always terrified. It's like you just start to build a kind of resilience and a belief in yourself that you can figure it out and you can test the waters before plunking down thousands of dollars for a startup idea. You can start small. You can start within your organization. There's so many different ways to figure out if entrepreneurship's right for you, and you may have to fail a bit to figure it out too. So
you got to try, you got to fail.
Yeah. I hate regret. And for me, it was really, I think I heard this on one of your other podcasts with, maybe it was the Crossroads founder. I think it was, where it was the fear of not trying that was outweighing my fear of doing it. It was the fear of regretting not trying. And that fear, combined with my now COO, CFO mentoring me out of my very cushy, pensioned, secure job, that was enough motivation to say, okay, I'm going to give it a go. It's only 1 year, very low risk. I can do this.
And how did you get to the revenue you're at now? What was the impetus and the catapult that just, because you went far.
Yes. So I would say the key to our success really has been fundamentally spending money on marketing. And a large chunk of that has come down to Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and Google. When I started the business, there was barely an Instagram in 2008. I think it was still really on the fringe, just starting out. The way I built the business before I quit my job, before we were investing heavily in advertising, was good old fashioned sending product to, what we then called bloggers, which you probably remember. Now the terms evolved into influencers, and it's a whole new world, as we know, on Instagram and TikTok. But it's predominantly been spending on marketing efforts, specifically in paid. And now we're looking at diversifying and actually focusing on some sort of influencer strategy, which we really hadn't had if I'm being honest, we really had not had a clear-cut influencer strategy over the years. A lot of the time it was me sending product and reaching out, hey, I'm the founder and I think readers would love this product. And that transitioned into the same thing with what we call seeding, where we would send some nano influencers and micro influencers and even people like yourself, quite frankly, people who we thought would want to try the product and enjoy the product, because it's a different world now in 2022 than it was even 5-6 years ago, where there's so much conversation happening online about women in particular's bodies just being free to be what we look like and not having all these hangups. And so conversations around things that were previously stigmatized are now starting to become more openly talked about. So to the point where if you had told me 10 years ago, it was really difficult to get what we would call user-generated content because people were a little shy.
They didn't want to admit that
they didn't want to admit that they were wearing these shorties.
And now people are going to throw up their skirts and go, yeah, right here.
And we love it. I am so here for it. Like nothing gets me as excited as when we get people just randomly sharing pictures of themselves on vacations, on their honeymoons, wherever. Nurses in scrubs showing their lifting up their scrub bottoms to show they're wearing the shorts underneath.
Yeah.
Because a lot of scrubs, they have this dropped inseam, and you've got that opportunity for chafe in between your thighs. And it's just,
Plus, scrubs are not made of really nice material.
they are not.
I don't want that touching the inner
You don't want it
regions of
touching
my
your bare
thighs.
No. And same thing with like unlined wool pants, for example,
Right.
things like that. So that for me has been so rewarding and satisfying just to literally watch that happen of, wow, we used to have to, how are we going to beg people to show us what them wearing the shorts? And now we get such an influx from our customers who are excited to show us how the shorts are helping them. It's just beyond. Yeah. It's incredible.
Do you focus on SEO much? And if so, what are people putting in as a keyword looking for this?
Yes and no. We can do a much better job. It's definitely a focus for us next year. The funny thing is, so people are searching for the same terms now as they were in 2008 and 2009. And those terms are shorts under dresses, shorts to wear under skirts, underwear to prevent thigh chafing, long underwear for chafe. And the funny part is that there isn't much creativity really around this. We've seen a few wacky search terms for sure, but in general, the search terms haven't changed. And because Thigh Society was really the OG in this space, we were the first brand to make size inclusive slip shorts. So when we started, there really was nobody else. Like I mentioned, there was, I think, a handful, if I have to cap it at 3 or 4 plus size companies who did not make smaller than a size 16, who were making these very basic shorts. We came on the scene saying, we're going to offer something size inclusive. That's this shapewear. We've been calling it shapewear for the last couple of years. I wish I had thought of it sooner. But when the thing is because we were the ones putting in chafe, and I knew enough. I was self-taught in Shopify back then, so I knew enough to put in keywords like chafing and wear these under your skirts and dresses for a long time. I'm talking like 7 or 8 years. We were consistently ranking #1 in SEO because we were the first. We just had the longevity of having these chafing keywords in our SEO.
But now thinking now chafing is a fancy word for rubbing together. So I bet
absolutely
rub.
That's it too. Yeah, I forgot that. Inner thigh rub, thighs rubbing together, rash between thighs. There's probably in total about 25 or so common phrases, but not much so new under the sun. Chub rub, again, is one that I've been using for years. People search that. It's interesting. People on some platforms, people are searching chub rub, whereas on other platforms, people don't know what it means. I think I'm starting to see that with TikTok. We're starting to notice that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't, chub rub is not something, and maybe it's where I'm in San Francisco Bay Area. Maybe it's just not a term that is used here. And you got to account for everywhere. And are people ordering Thigh Society from Japan and Australia, or is it really North America?
So we're mainly North American focused. When I first started, the funny thing was we were selling quite a bit to Australia and New Zealand. And that's because in my early days of reaching out to influencers, then bloggers, I found this incredible blogger in Australia who was based out of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get it wrong. Was it Melbourne or Sydney? I want to say it was Melbourne. And she had a beautiful blog site and had followers who I felt would be interested in this product. Long story short, I sent it to her. My husband and I ended up taking a trip to Australia. We met. It was pretty cool. It was like she was such a fan of the shorts that she was promoting it and her blog was getting super popular. So for a long time, we were getting a lot of traffic and sales by people finding us through her. And so we continued on that path without really putting too much money in marketing as far as like attracting customers from that geography. But we did have a dedicated site. We had to shut it down during the pandemic, unfortunately, because crazy story, DHL, like major international global shipper, stopped shipping internationally out of Canada. Crazy. And so we had to find another supplier, and that shipper was just very unreliable. Packages were taking like 8 weeks if they arrived at all. And so we shut that down in addition to our international shipping in total. So now, yes, we do ship globally, but it wouldn't comprise more than probably not about 1% of our sales. I think I'd love to get back into Australia and New Zealand because offset some of our seasonality, even though we say our
Right. It's hot
they
down
are.
there.
Yeah, it's hot. They're getting into their spring as our temperatures are cooling down. So definitely an area of focus for us to re-enter and re-engage with some of our customers who had been following us for years and years, and then eventually put some more strategy behind Europe as a market, South America, Australia, and all that good stuff. But for now, we're mainly in the US and Canada, and actually 80% of our sales are in the States. So
Yes.
yeah.
Wow. You've
Yeah.
got a huge road ahead of you of doubling and tripling. And I have a feeling I love that you're able to run your company the way you are now. But once you get to a certain level, it maybe we can talk in 5 years. I don't know
Yeah.
if it will work.
Yeah, you and me both. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I'd like to think that I have a good relationship with everyone on the team. All of the team members are excited to work with this brand. They love what we're doing. They take immense pride in their work, and everybody understands the contribution they're making to this company, to this brand, the difference they're making in people's lives. So I hope that we can come up with a solution to keep this team and keep growing as a freelance business, if only to shout from the rooftops that, hey, it can be done. Let's set a new normal and new possibilities. I know
Can
a
you
lot of,
imagine
yeah,
a
can you
50
imagine?
million, like a $50 million
Yeah, why
brand
not?
with just freelancers?
Why not?
Maybe we
Right?
should just challenge you right here and right now to
Why not? We may need to bring in, who knows, or maybe some agencies that we might need to loop in. And I glossed over this part, and no disrespect to agencies. It just I found it difficult. I found it difficult in the past to work with agencies. They just tend to be like very hierarchical. There's many layers of people to go through to get something done. And I just like the directness of working with
yeah.
a
I mean, there's a
freelancer
lot of overhead that you're paying
a
for.
lot. And
So
you're paying more money for sure. So yeah, who knows? I love that challenge. Let's see what happens in 5 years.